Well, we're here. Welcome to another edition of the Bulluminati podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Bond. Joining alongside me, as always, Seth Varnadore and Robert Steeg. And then this week, we're joined by Nick Simon of DK Nation and the Daily Stampede, who I feel like after the last couple of weeks has some hashtag thoughts that he wants to get off his chest tonight. And we'll discuss everything that's happened over the last couple of weeks. First and foremost, hopefully, everybody's doing as well as can be expected after the hurricane. Seth, you didn't have internet until late last night?
Yeah, late. Like 11 o'clock last night, just about.
So I know you went through it. You were in a mandatory evacuation zone, if I'm not mistaken, and you fled to Disney, which is it's a pretty smart move.
Yeah, it was. I figured they'd have places to eat and be pretty safe, and it turned out to be a pretty good decision overall. Not perfect, but we did get trapped. There's like 5 or 6 I-4 exits that were flooded, so you couldn't even get on I-4. But overall, good decision on my part. If the track didn't move, my house would have got wiped off the map. So got lucky that it did go south, but unfortunately that means it went to other people. So
right. One of those things, right, where we're so thankful that it didn't hit our area, but that just means someone else got completely destroyed. And seeing those pictures and stuff from the Fort Myers area and below, it's really tough. Our thoughts are with them as they kind of pick up the pieces to their life and start over. I think Fort Myers is basically going to have to do a complete rebuild in places like that. I know the vacation spot that I go to, Palm Island, they got hit pretty hard down there. So tough to see that happen. But I guess let's get to lighter news, lighter topics. So USF, in theory, has played football twice in the last 2 weeks. They lost because we didn't have a podcast last week. They did lose to Louisville. If you guys weren't caught up, they lost to Louisville 41-3. They kicked a sad field goal at the start of the fourth quarter of that game because they had a new special teams unit. They wanted to get them a game rep, so good for them. And then last week they were down 41-7. If I'm not mistaken, to ECU in Boca Raton as the game got moved from Ray J due to the hurricane. They ended up winning the second half 21-7. Jeff Scott is now 8-14-1 all time in second halves. So that's really good for the Bulls. Unfortunately, he is still 1-22 in FBS games as USF head coach as they fall to the Pirates 48-28 in a game that the score is so misleading it's not even funny. I'll open the floor. Opening comments for whoever wants to dig in. We've got some things that we're gonna have to unpack here tonight.
When you were giving that very heartfelt monologue there about the disaster and everything like that, and the first thing that I see from a comment is pooped pants up to the waistband, and I couldn't help but to laugh at it. You're saying very sensitive things. I'm sorry. I wasn't laughing at the situation. I was laughing at the context around it. Holy shit! Did we just have? I mean, we were like, hey, don't poop your pants against Louisville. Like, we were like, hey, they're a tough team. You got to worry about them, and kind of went as expected. At least at the beginning of the year, kind of situation. But then you go out there. And you're like, all right, guys, we know there's a natural disaster. You can play for the city that we put on your back and everything like that. And then you poop your pants even harder. And I didn't think that was possible. Really. It's like, good God. I mean, we've joked about like hitting rock bottom, like the McNeese State loss. Yeah, bad situation there and everything like that. But that was game one, year one of a new coach. You double poop your pants in back-to-back weeks against two opponents who, historically USF has played well up against. So that's fun. At this point, I'm just taking the season as it is. Just, hey, let's celebrate the little things. Let's really lean in on the Jeff Scott winning the second half thing and just keep track. First half doesn't matter anymore, guys. We're second half team. Second half of the season starts up. Let's get that going.
See, so it's going to be like potty training for the rest of the season for Steve.
Oh, this is worse than potty training. This is like potty training while you have like you're potty training your kid, and then you have a bunch of puppies that you have in like the little pin with newspaper, but you're out of newspaper. So you're really you're using t-shirts and anything else at this point. And then you get him up there every Tuesday and he just parrots some stupid shit that he thinks sounds good in his head.
So you didn't enjoy the game, Steve?
Oh, but actually, sorry, Nick, I didn't want to cut you off there. I'm going to address this right off the top. USF Blizzard, fantastic name. As all intents and purposes of what I have heard and have seen around this team, he has not lost the locker room, which is the most astounding thing ever to me, because he has completely lost this fan base, like to a T. But I mean, the guys are still playing hard for him, week in and week out, it appears. And it is admirable to a point, because at this point, I mean, we're all just looking desperately for some sort of sign of life. But I mean, the players are still giving 110% effort every single time. I mean, it's not like these guys are just keeling over at halftime or anything like that and just trying to, limp their way out of the stadium. They're at least going for it in the second half. I don't know what they say in the second half to keep these guys going. God bless them, because that's incredible. But he has not lost the locker room to the extent of what everyone online thinks has happened. And now I'll end it.
What I'll say is, how hilarious would it have been if we actually pulled it out against Florida, and like the last 2 weeks still happened. Like, not only would this fan base be pissed, but I mean, in Gainesville, they're already like ready to storm Napier's office and
catatonic, right?
Yeah. Steve, on Saturday. So I spent the last week moving up to Baltimore. So I spent my weekend, just getting stuff ready, like, just moving around the house and stuff. But I decided I'm going to just put on this game for a second. And then I saw you post I'm going to go grocery shopping. And then I said, I'm going to do the same thing. I actually need to get that done, because it's a hell of a lot better than watching this shit. And it's just fucking bad, man. It's bad. It's bad, man.
Yeah, I was internetless when I got home, like we talked about earlier. So I drove for 45 minutes to go watch the game. Probably a waste of gasoline at that point. But there was a couple of good things in the game, but it was mostly just very terrible. And it's just there's the second half don't even matter, right? Because you're not technically in garbage time, because it was only a 34-point lead at halftime instead of 35. But man, it's somebody on Twitter said I was gonna try to spin this really positively, because I always try to spin things. I'm like, no, it's pretty bad. Like, there's not much spinning you can do here.
Yeah,
the one spin would be that my fantasy team just had a breakout performance this week.
Breakout performance. I mean, we'll just address that. You crushed everybody. I think Jimmy Horn probably had 40 points to himself with his
39.
Eight catch, 180-yard day with 2 touchdowns, including a 91-yard touchdown, where we saw why he's the best player on this USF team, and it's probably not even close. That was the one bright spot, we'll harp on this, according to Jeff Scott, the other positive was the second half. They won 21-7. So that's just top-notch stuff there from our guy. Here's the thing, though. This year, they're trailing 33-7 aggregate in FBS games this season after the first half. So that's not great. would be a safe start to assume. And looking back, we in our Slack channel, we've been kind of talking, what's the differences or similarities, I guess, between what's going on right now and the end of the Charlie Strong era. And really, it's really the same. I put out that tweet, I think it was Monday or Sunday, about the differentials of their last 9 games. Jeff Scott is 0-9 his last 9 FBS games. 5 of them have been by losses by more than 18 or more points. They've been outscored, I think it was 360 to 191. On the flip side, Charlie Strong, his last 9 FBS games was also 0-9, outscored by 18 or more points in 6 of those games. And the combined score was like 357 to 141 or something like that. So different, but the same. And somehow I just don't understand how this continues to happen. And Steve, you kind of pressed on it today. That this press conference was not great from Jeff Scott, from start to finish, grasping at literally anything. I said to someone in a text message that he was like the cat who fell out of the boat and was trying to grasp onto anything before he drowned. And like, what are we doing here? What, like, I don't want to make excuses, but here's a list of 14 excuses.
Right. It's sad, really. And I think everyone is frustrated to a T. And I was going to make this a tweet, and then I decided not to because I tweeted too much about it. So I'm going to say it here. It's really unfortunate. I think the most unfortunate thing about what he said during his press conference wasn't the word scramble of justifying the 7 to 14 points or whatever that was. Really, it came down to what he said when he said he wasn't on social media. And then it kind of dawned on me a little bit more that, oh shit, like he's truly not seeing. And I mean, I'm sure he's hearing about it from boosters and from, everyone else. Like he doesn't have blinders on to everything that's happening here. Of course he can spin things in whatever way he wants to in his head to try to justify where the team is at and everything. But at the same time, like, he is a human being who is scrambling ever so desperately to cling on to something. And we saw it under Charlie Strong, towards the end of his tenure here, that, these guys are kind of at a headspace of just consistent negativity that's around them. And they're trying so desperately to keep their players and their staff to keep the faith at this, but they don't realize that all of this is happening on social media as well. And so it's unfortunate. The players see it on social media. The support staff see it on social media. The booster, the rest of the athletic staff, everyone that's associated with USF football in some way. I saw Maria Alvarez tweet about some of the stuff that people are saying about Jeff Scott and everything like that. And it's sad because he doesn't see any of it. And so it's like dropping a bomb and then walking away and then not seeing the damage that it does to the rest of the community and everyone involved. And so, like, when I go and, USF posts the uniforms for the week, or USF posts like the photos of like, oh, week 6 ready or anything like that. And all of the replies are people saying like, fuck you, Jeff Scott, and fuck you. And guys actually like, fuck you. But keep in mind, there is someone else that is not Jeff Scott on the other end of that. And I know we all are frustrated at this situation. I am incredibly frustrated by the situation, but these are people that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And I have no problem calling out Jeff Scott for doing a really poor job of making sure that the team is ready week in and week out. But the last thing that I'm going to do is tweet it at the fucking USF admin who's taking care of the account, because then that person's going to hate their job and then they're going to leave. And then the circle of suck happens again for our social media accounts. It's this consistent cycle of just, holy shit, we keep getting ourselves into it. And it all starts because we can't hire a good enough head coach to get this program out of the shitty sewer that we're in right now.
Yeah, to me, I thought the press conference stuff, that's like, some of that is coach brain. Like, as someone who's been there, when you're trying to like show your team that, hey, we're not far off. There's things if we just improve here, there is something to that. Well, because you have to keep your team motivated and show them, look, if we can fix these things, it's not like we're totally out of it, right? But I think that can't be your pitch to the fan base. That's something that probably needs to stay in the meeting room, right? Because at this point, we've heard it before. So I think you just got to take your medicine in front of the media. It's hard when he's spending time trying to rationalize it, because this is the first time he's ever really faced failure. I mean, he coached in high school. He was a head coach in high school, won a state championship within 2 years of being a head coach. Like, he's never had to deal with this kind of stuff. Clemson, they lost 7 games in Dabo's first year. That's not, that ain't this. So there's a guy that's always had success at trying to kind of rationalize things. And I know being in the situation where you lose games and you try to, show your team, all right, we're not that far off. Don't get discouraged, right? Because you want to keep guys motivated. You don't want to lose the season over a game. It's more than one game now, but just still show them where you're close. What if we could change this? If you could if you tip this ball away instead of this guy catching it, there's something to that, just in terms of showing your team that, no, we're not like way out of it, or we're not like just getting crushed because you guys suck and it's awful. And, you're close. You just got to finish. But I just think that cannot be your message to the fan base now, because I really think the fans have been, for the most part, pretty understanding with the rebuild. But now we're in year 3, and it's not. I try to find historical precedent. When Dan Mullen was talking about being fired last year at Florida, and I was writing an article in Florida, I wrote a piece on it trying to find historical precedent for somebody having as bad of a record that far into their career to school and coming back and winning anything, right? I couldn't find it. So to me, that's like, Dan Mullen's either got to be 1 in a million and this turnaround, or he needs to be fired if you're going to win championships, right? So that's why I'm trying to find kind of a historical precedent that's similar to this level for the first 3 years. Obviously, this year's not over. Maybe they rip off a run. It does not seem likely. But, you're getting to a point where if you don't start winning some games, you're reaching a precedent where nobody that started like this has ever kind of turned into anything. Kentucky, I know you mentioned Kentucky today. Kentucky started 2-10 and then won 5 games 2 years in a row. If they won 5 games this year, they'd start building a statue just about. Like, that's how excited people would be. So it's not like you're winning 5 games 2 years in a row. So it's not even, to me, a great comparison. And I think the other comparison to 2019 is I feel like the American was a lot tougher in 2019 than it is now. You have – I think you have an easier time in conference than you did in 2019. You had Memphis that year that was really good. You had to play them. UCF wasn't bad. Cincinnati was good. That was pretty good that year. Navy was pretty good that year. SMU was pretty good that year. You look at the top of the conference isn't quite as strong now as it was then. So I think that's another part of it. It's not quite the same. And you still won 4 games in 2019. So you've got to finish this year on a really high note. Otherwise, man, we're kind of in uncharted waters here.
Yeah, and to go back to your point about like the general frustration, it's like you're right. Everybody, I think most people were understanding of the rebuild, but the thing about the rebuild is at some point you have to, actually build, and
Right.
and it's just very demoralizing, especially on the fan, like from the fan perspective, when most of your games or a lot of your games in FBS, like against FBS opponents, the game's fucking over in the middle of the second quarter. And it's like, it's like, what do you want me to, it's like, what do you want me to do with this? It's like, we want to support this staff. We want to support this coach, this player, this program as they're trying, but it's like, I keep saying, it's like you have to give people something to grab onto, and outside of that clearly fluke game against Florida 3 weeks ago.
Feels like it though.
Feels like it. There's just nothing, and then eventually you're gonna start to get to that point where a lot of people are, where it's like, okay, like we need to move on and possibly make a change.
They get blown. Let's say they get blown out 2 weeks in a row, the message is still going to be, we're only halfway through the season. It's like what we got to go. I think the frustrating thing, just to kind of piggyback off what Nick said, right? And then Jessica talked about it's like building a house. It doesn't look great. But like 2020, you pour the foundation and then you look, oh, it's got a lot of cracks in it. We got to do it again. 2021, you do the same thing. Oh, this pipe that was quarterback that was, all my plumbing, we got to take that out. It's like we're kind of redoing the same steps 3 years in a row. So that's got to be frustrating. If you had a contractor that kept constantly blowing it when he's just trying to lay the foundation for the house, you'd probably get pretty upset. So,
and they've got the nice marble and like Jimmy Horn and Brian Petit, and they've got the nice fixtures. It's just like at the core, it's not good. So go ahead, Steve.
That reminded me of this House Hunters episode where this guy, he was looking for a new house with his wife, but he had this red British phone booth that he wanted to find a place for. And that red phone booth is Jimmy Horn, and we're trying to find a place for him. And I was beside myself the entire episode because every single place that they went, he was like, oh, I think the red phone booth would go really good right there. And his wife is just not having it. And his wife is all of us.
Right. And I think the just super frustrating part is like Seth and I, we left that Florida game. Everybody left that Florida game like, okay, we're here. And then, I mean, the entire theme of that next week was literally do not poop the bed, do not poop the bed. And then you do that. And then you do it again. And you expect the fan base to be just okay with that, where, all right, now you've been blown out in 60% of your games this year. You haven't really competed against anyone really good. I think all that Florida game showed was Florida has a lot of problems.
I also think there was they kind of came out a little flat and weren't showing a ton in that game. Just looking back, what they did the following couple weeks schematically, I think they were kind of like, all right, we played 2 really hard games. Let's get through this, save some stuff for Tennessee, kind of be vanilla, and it almost bit them in the butt. And USF came out with this bunch of stuff they hadn't seen before, and it took them a while to catch on. But once they did in the second half, they played a little bit better. But, yeah, I looking back on the game, it was a little bit it probably turned out about the way maybe it should have, just based on there were some things here or there that could have happened fluky, but on both sides. But it doesn't feel as close looking back on it now with the performances of the last 2 weeks. It almost makes that game feel even worse. Like maybe you weren't even in that game, really. Maybe that was all smoke and mirrors. So I don't know. Has not been great. And you had such a high coming off that game the last 2 weeks is taking it down you see this picture of the stock market where it's like up and then it goes down through the bottom of the graph.
Right.
That's kind of where we're at right now. Is you had this great up, a lot of excitement, and now you're down through the bottom of the graph. It almost would have been better just to get blown out in that game and play Louisville tight. People would have felt better about it, but
I don't know. I don't see a path forward for Jeff Scott right now, especially with now you're staring down the barrel of Cincinnati, who by all accounts looks pretty freaking good again this year. They sputtered a little bit early in the season. They played Arkansas really close. I think they lost by a touchdown in that game to open the year, but they've kind of turned it on. Ben Bryant is the guy we kind of all figured he would be, as his year of finishing school at Eastern Michigan kind of helped him out. I think he's thrown for 14 touchdowns. I think he's completing like close to 70% of his passes. I just don't see how this gets any better. And now you lose to Cincinnati, and then you've got Tulane homecoming with a bye week coming up, and Tulane looks like they've kind of righted the ship as well. And I mean, they won that game last Friday with their third string quarterback. I don't know who's going to be starting for them in 2 weeks at quarterback, but they seem to have figured out some stuff. And that game's no sure thing because you got the doors blown off you last year by this team on the road. So I 1-6 is a real possibility for Jeff Scott. And how can Michael Kelly, how can Jeff Scott look at this fan base, these players, like, guys, this is definitely still going in the right direction. We're 1-6. We've gotten blown out 4 weeks in a row. This is definitely a place to be. This is where we're at. It doesn't make any sense. It does not make any sense why this continues to happen. Jeff Scott mentioned it in the press conference on Tuesday. 4 head coaches in the last 12 years. There really hasn't been much stability in the last 12 years. Yeah, but some of the coaches still had success. Skip Holtz went to a bowl game and won a bowl game. All right. You got your offensive coordinator position because Skip Holtz beat you guys. Like, let's slow it down here. And that word vomit, that word salad that he had about the, take those 2 drives that we had, that's 14. If we stop them in one of those man-on-mans, we're actually leading by a point with a quarter to go, with 8 minutes left. Skip Holtz did the exact same thing, and in 2011 they were 5-7 or something like that, and 4 or 5 of those losses were 1-score games that he kind of caused himself, just dumbass decision after dumbass decision late in those games. Now he's spinning it that we're right there. We're right there. It's a Skip Holtz level kind of twist of the facts almost from Jeff Scott, and it's the cat drowning in water, man. He doesn't know what else to do. And the alarming thing is it's the same things happening over and over again. It's the slow starts. He still hasn't figured that out. It's been a thing for over a year now, and he still hasn't figured out a way to do it. Then do something completely different. Do something that you've never done before. If you're doing all the things that that has won and it's not working, do something different. I don't know what that is. You're a much smarter man. You've forgotten more about football than I will ever know my entire life, but do something different.
My question is, what kind of information are they getting in their game prep? Because are they just constantly off guard at the beginning of games? What teams are doing schematically?
I think I'd almost think psychologically it's like, I mean, if you go back to the BYU game and you go the Howard game, and we can kind of take a look at the microcosm there, and it's like, oh, okay, we got punched in the mouth on the first play of the game for both sides of things. And so, I mean, it is a psychological thing. And you can see it across all sports that, sometimes when you get psychologically down on yourself, you throw everything else out the window. And I think that's where unfortunately, I think that's where the team is at this point, is that the coaching staff, the players, and it's the unfortunate kind of thing that's happened, especially when you have a lot of guys that have been on this team a long time, mixed with newcomers and everything like that. They might just get down on themselves. A bad route, a bad rub, a missed assignment or something like that. They're so worried about missing that assignment that they miss that assignment. They're probably harping on these types of things in practice. I'd like to think that this, coaching staff isn't the most incompetent, people in the world, better than, the 4 of us could probably do. But it comes down to a point where they know what to do. They talk about it all the time, and listening to the different spaces and the conversations that we see with Trickett and Shoop and everything like that. Like, the players, the coaches, everyone knows what to do. They know their assignments. It doesn't happen. It doesn't click. And whether it's motivation, whether it's something, they might be getting bad intel, but I'd be really shocked if, we're getting all the bad intel in the world and there's a sleeper agent somewhere on the team that's, giving away everything to the opposing teams. But it's a mess.
I mean, it happened to her. It happened to Herm.
My question is, why is it because the second half thing, right? It's obviously a thing. Is it just because teams are quitting and taking their foot off the pedal? Is that all of it? Or is it because
Jeff
you can
Scott
adjust a little bit to it?
Jeff Scott basically said as much in this press conference today. It's like, yeah, he was like kind of walking it back, but then he still kind of touts the second half thing. He basically said, these guys, these other teams get up by a lot. So maybe they take their foot off the pedal and, our guys get pissed and then they start to perform. I'm like, well, then fix it. Do something different. That's the frustrating part. What is it? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. It's clear you're doing the same thing over and over again because you've said as much. You're doing the things that work, except they're not working anymore, and you haven't figured out a way to do anything different. So,
and just and it also just goes to the fact that like none of these guys, whether it's like the coaches who have been here for a couple of years or like a lot of these players, they've just never really been in a position to where it's been them who's been the aggressor in the first quarter. Like, I don't think like outside of like maybe a few games, they're always down. And at some point it's like you just don't have the experience and you just don't know like what to do in that situation. And I don't know.
It's the same thing that happened in the Florida game. Because they were up in the fourth quarter and the spotlight got bright and then they peed their pants. I mean, it's a legit thing.
Well, I guess my question is, right, Richard Johnson wrote a piece about it earlier this year talking about and spoke about it at the beginning of the season. Hey, look how great everyone comes out great on script, right? It's watch the drives after the initial script, right? USF has not come out great on script this year. Terrible. So that's my question. I don't think the play calling has been awful for the most part.
I don't think so either.
But on like beginning of the games are supposed to be times where you know what they're running. You have a good idea what they're running because of your game plan and your game prep. So you put together a perfect script to take advantage of how you think they're going to play you. And when you come out and you don't move the ball at all, you go 3 and out a ton on your first drives. Like, are you getting bad information, or are teams just so well coached they're just totally changing how they are going to play you? I don't know. That's to me the most troubling thing. Is this is supposed to be kind of when you're at your best and you can really put your imprint on the game and really kind of start setting the defense up for things. At least I'm thinking from an offensive perspective. Start setting the defense up for things for later in the game. And you're coming out and it's like they're not quite sure what they're going to get. And it's not like they play something crazy. Almost everybody plays 11 personnel football now. So it's not like you're not showing something that nobody else. You're running like, well, I'm not sure how we're running the flex bone. So I'm not sure how they're going to play us. You're running 11 personnel spread, basically. It's everybody. I think it's like 90% of teams in the country run 11 personnel. So,
and it's not like some player comes out of the woodwork to like do this stuff. Like it's
what's the deal?
We were like circling him. We were like, hey, you might want to like tackle this guy like a couple of times, and he does that. CJ Johnson from ECU, Billy Cunningham. Like none of these things are like surprising in the least. It's as if they were like mentally doing so much gymnastics that like there's no way they would hand it off to Puka Nacua on the first play on a jet sweep.
I thought the Florida game, they had a good plan. Like they had a good plan for Florida's defense. At least the offense had a really good plan for Florida's defense. They showed it early. They just fumbled the first drive away. They kind of shot themselves in the foot. But they had a really good plan. But the other games, have you seen like a really good plan to take advantage of exactly what the other team's doing?
No, and
not really, right? So that's weird to me.
To your point, so I think they went 3 and out, first 2 drives versus ECU, and I think the second drive was 3 straight screenplays that netted 0 yards. So what are you? Why is that the case? And then I think it was the very next drive. They actually got something going. I think that was the drive that Gary fumbled, or they got some more yardage. They actually moved the ball, but to your point, Seth, I mean, the game script has been terrible. They've been outscored 66-7 in the first quarter this year, and they were outscored in the first quarter by, I think I want to say close to 70 points in 2021 as well. What are you doing? What are you doing in the first quarter? Or I guess I mean, pretty glaring. What aren't you doing is being effective, but like how are you so glaringly bad at this? And in 2020, I looked back at this in 2020, his first year, it was actually the second quarter that got wonky for them where they got blown out. They kept it pretty close. I think they were within 12 points of their opponents in the first quarter. The second quarter is where the opponents kind of turned it up on them. And then the rest of the games were the rest of the quarters were kind of bad as well. But what's not clicking in that first quarter?
I have a solution. Have I showed you guys my solution?
No.
Okay, let's see if I can get it up here.
Share with the class.
I have a wheel.
Oh yes.
That we could call.
Yeah.
You could call plays on the wheel. Ready? Let's click the spin. Let's see how we should.
Is one of them fumble?
Let's open the game. Oh, Jimmy Horn touched. Open the game. Good idea. And then I got a Batiste touch here. All right. A Weaver touch and then quarterback run. I think if you just did like a variation of the wheel here. Oh, Weaver. All right, let's get Weaver a touch. It's really not.
You
QB run.
Weaver touch.
Take the jet.
All right, QB run.
The jet. Give me some QB power.
This, I think, the wheel, but it's. I'm obviously being somewhat facetious here, but also like it's not crazy to be like, okay, who are our best players? How can I get them the ball? Let's make sure these guys touch the ball every drive. Those guys should be touching the football, and the quarterback run has to be a big part of your offense. You can't wait to break it out till you're down 21 points, which it seems like what they're doing. I know they said Bohannon was a little banged up in the Louisville game after playing Florida, but like your offense was so good against Florida because of the quarterback run game and all the stuff you did off of it. The next week to have it totally scrapped was not great. So that's got to be brought back in. So
I don't know, man. It's you've got the talent in the skill position, and honestly, it was kind of Gary's MO at Baylor, right? He was always kind of dealing with injury stuff. He missed the Big 12 championship game because he was hurt. He was knocked around at Sugar Bowl. He wasn't healthy toward the end of the year, and frankly, he wasn't run as much at Baylor. It's just he just kept getting hurt. So now you're dealing with a banged up quarterback. You've got Jaron Mangum, who is out for an indefinite period of time. How Jeff Scott phrased it on Tuesday was we hope to get him back at some point. Kelly Joyner's a week away. Jimmy Horn finally got back. Xavier Weaver just got back. Joe who was used in marketing material this week, is he going to be back this week? I doubt it. Maybe. The thing that was interesting, I don't know if it was a disciplinary thing or injury thing, but Amarian Dawson didn't play a lick. I'm not even sure he traveled last week.
He got listed as when Jeff Scott was going through all the starters that were injured, he listed Dawson. He said OD couldn't go or something like that. So
Daquan Stanley. So now you're running out of the skill position guys, and it is a legitimate reason. But why are these guys continually getting hurt? I haven't seen the injury bug hit a team this bad in a very, very long time. Is it the way you're training? Is it? It doesn't make any sense how everybody either their ankle or they have a broken wrist or what have you. It doesn't make any sense.
Fate doesn't want them to succeed.
It could just be bad luck, or it could be something with other training.
Nick, do you want to address the elephant in the room? I'll ask the question very very candidly. Hey, at Bulls Nathan SBN, are you gonna write is it time to let go of the Jeff Scott experiment like you did for the Charlie Strong piece that you did that got him fired inadvertently? I'll hang up and listen.
So here's the thing. To be fair, we have not publicly called for Jeff Scott to be fired. I think that's pretty clear. Well, Steeg, you fired a women's tennis coach. Like you're a loose cannon. Who knows what you're gonna do?
It's like a bodily function with him.
I mean, it's poop, pee, and fire coaches. That's what Steeg does.
It's like a Steinbrenner.
been very careful about that. And the reason being is, for me personally, it seems out of place for me right now as it stands. It is, we're recording at 9:50 on a Tuesday, October 4th. From calling for the guy to get fired when I'm not there day to day. In 2019, I was there day to day. I was talking to Charlie Strong. You know, we had multiple conversations. We talked weekly during the press conferences and whatnot, and talked during games. I'm only talking to Jeff Scott on Saturdays after games. It's tough for me to morally wrap around the fact that I'm calling for this dude's job and I'm not interacting with him nearly enough. And that's just kind of part of life, right? I have a different job. I'm in a different part of my life. I still cover as much as I can, right? But it's tougher when you're saying this guy needs to be fired from his job. Now, ask me next week if they get blown out again, things may change. But as it stands right now, no, I'm not going to write that yet. And 4 years, this website has been pretty well dedicated for, to over a decade to providing, I would say, pretty objective stuff. We live and die by this program because we know that we are going to survive any head coach that ever comes through this place, unless it's like Bear Bryant and he just stays for 40 years, or Nick Saban, whatever. We're all going to be here long after this current coach, this current administration, the SIDs, literally everybody is gone. Maybe the only person that will ever outlive us within USF is Jim Lauk. Like, he's just never going to go away. So like, this sucks just as much as for us as it does. Like, I know we can be asshole. Like, I'll be perfectly candid. I can be an absolute asshole in person, in real life, on Twitter, and toward coaches. But I want to make sure that the hate blog moniker only came about because people thought we hated the program, and it's not. It's we want the program to succeed, and we're tired of it not succeeding. And it's been that way for 11 years, sans that 2015, 2016, 2017-ish seasons that we've been covering the program. So it's just to make the long story short, it's tough for me to do that right now. And I think the other thing that may sway me is if he keeps saying shit like that on Tuesday during that press conference. We've made our site's mission is, we can live with good process, bad result all day, every day. What I can't live with is bad process, bad result, or bad process, good result. Bad process, good result gets you that 2018 season when they start 7-0. Were we not 7-0? That's bad process, good result. What we're seeing right now is bad process, bad result, and it's not working. And we can't stand for it. Just logical people cannot stand for bad process, bad result, and expect things to get better. Your process needs to be there. The process isn't there. It's not working. It's clearly broken. Figure it the fuck out or get out of the way.
Kansas figured it out.
Shit, yeah, they did.
Like that, and that's just it's just like it just comes down to, at like some point you just have to you just have to figure it out, dude. Like again, go all the way back. Like, we understand that this is like, you inherited a tough situation and that this is going to be a bit of a rebuilding job to retool. But like, at the same time, to me, in my mind, it shouldn't be this difficult to, make steps forward. Again, like I just mentioned, Kansas is the most moribund program in the entire Power Five. Like, they were dead. They were dead like 2 years ago. They were like, I saw like how they averaged last decade. They averaged 2 wins a game every season, like 2 wins a game. And within not even a full 2 years, a year and a half, Leipold has them like literally on the verge of being bowl eligible this week, and they're ranked. So to be able to figure it out, man.
So are you saying that you should go hire a guy that's won a national championship at a lower level?
Hey, we're not there yet, Seth. We're not there yet.
Oh God,
We're not. I'll stand for
But-
one thing. I'll stand for one thing. We're not doing hot board until it happens. We're not,
No.
We're not doing it until it happens. Well,
Yeah,
have fun.
and it's like there's obviously a human cost to all these things, right? It's not just as easy as, all right, he's gone, get him out of here. It's, there's a lot of, somebody new coming in could literally change over every single person that's working in the football department. So there's human cost to these things, and that's why I think it's good that Nathan's kind of being not cautious, but he wants to make sure that he's got all his ducks in a row here, that he's sure before you do a thing like this, because it is, while it's just one publication, it's still asking for somebody that's got 2 kids to lose their job. Obviously, he gets paid pretty well. He'll be okay. But there's still human cost to down the line. It's not just him. It's kind of the whole football area. And you're basically saying, you're basically saying 70 people need to get fired. So there is a human cost to this, and I think it's always good. I always would prefer to be. I know there's some people that have been calling for Jeff Scott to be fired since like game 3, or maybe even after the Notre Dame game. Oh, he's not going to cut it. We need to this isn't the guy. And maybe you end up being right, but I'd rather be right for the right reasons and not just kind of just knee-jerk guess something early and just end up being right. I'd rather be right for the right reasons, kind of wait and make sure things play out a little bit. Personally, and I think we all kind of feel similarly, we're not going to we're not going to talk about really coaches. I don't think potential new coaches while he's still a head coach. It's just kind of it's kind of tough. Yeah, not publicly. I'm already making shirts up, but
$50 donations gets you into the Slack channel.
that's
No.
right.
$5,000 donations.
So there's a human cost to all this as well. So it's not just paying a buyout. There's a lot of people that get affected by these things. So I think everyone in here is hoping that they win the rest of the games this season and they turn it around and everything's awesome. That would be great. We don't think that's going to happen, but it would be cool. I think everybody would be happy with that. So that's what we're hoping for. What we're going to get is probably a little bit different, and we'll kind of see where it goes from here.
Seth, I want you to start narrating more things like that. Like, that was beautifully said.
Well, I had a few days without internet to clear my mind.
You're a new man. Just practicing yoga and meditating and dealing with screaming kids.
Yeah, it's been an experience.
Yeah,
changed me for the better.
I wouldn't wish that upon my worst enemy. I wouldn't wish that upon Sterling Gilbert. Is really what it boils down to. Well, maybe. You know what? I take that back. But even the Kansas point was great. It makes a lot of sense. UConn beat Fresno State over the weekend. Like, I mean, come on, UConn. And I was kind of going through the coaching cycle, that 2019 coaching cycle, and only a couple of guys are probably worse off than Jeff Scott right now. And they've all been kind of fired. Nick Rolovich, who own can of worms there.
That was a mess.
Right. Carl Durrell, who I think he won Coach of the Year in 2020. I think he won like the big Pac-12 or
yeah, they did really good in the 4-game season. They did
season.
And then flamed out last year, and that was even worse this year. He got fired. Todd Graham, yet again, another weird one. So Jeff Scott's really got that going for him, that of that 2019 coaching cycle, he wouldn't be the first one fired. So that's good for him. He's got that going for him. But I saw someone say Marcus Arroyo, UNLV. I believe he was hired that same cycle, and I think they're 4-1, and they've kind of righted the ship a little bit. There's only a couple of teams where you're like, I just don't know if it's ever going to actually work there. Like I think New Mexico State. I think Danny Gonzalez, if I'm not mistaken, is the head coach at New Mexico State. That's just one of those perpetually bad jobs. Like you're in New Mexico and you're not even like New Mexico. You're like the state, like New Mexico State. Like who you're really getting there. So I think Willie Taggart was fired that year, if I'm not mistaken. So Mike Norvell, he's kind of figured it out. They look pretty good. Wake Forest notwithstanding, but Wake Forest looks legit. I think they got a rejuvenation from Sam Hartman getting back into the fold there a few weeks ago after I think it was like a blood clot issue or something like that. So I think but
some sort of non-football related,
right?
illness.
It was
Like
a health
bad.
scare that he had to take some time off, and he kind of righted the ship. But I mean, 1-22 guys like that. That's not you. That's really hard to do. Is like you fall into wins sometimes, and it just seems like literally every single time USF continues to just fall out of really snatching defeat from the jaws of victory over and over again.
And Taggart was hired at FAU in 2020, and that's not looking too good.
Yeah, that hasn't been great for Willie either. I know he openly pined for the USF job, but good Lord.
I'm trying to think who's doing well in that cycle. I guess Lane Kiffin was in that cycle, right?
Yeah, Lane Kiffin.
So he's doing well. Was Pittman in that cycle?
I think so.
Phenomenal.
Oh. So yeah. I think a lot of people from that year are kind of struggling without probably a ton of infrastructure behind you, especially with how you had to recruit during COVID. It probably helped to have a ton of infrastructure on the recruiting side and the personnel side. Probably was even more important during that. So that's maybe why you see some of these, like a lot of guys struggling at lower levels or schools that can't spend quite as much money on those things. So could be somewhat indicative.
So here's this coaching cycle. So it was actually New Mexico, Danny Gonzalez, UNLV, Marcus Arroyo, Missouri, Eli Drinkowitz, who he's won some games. So there's that.
He's got to finish this year strong, or he's going to be. I think he'll probably get another year, but he's teetering.
Yeah, 5-5 in 2020, 6-7 last year, 2-3 this year. They did play Georgia, right? They played Georgia close.
Played Georgia super tight, but they
kind of gagged the game.
I thought they blew with their coaching decisions.
But so there's that. Greg Schiano at Rutgers, not terrible.
Doing about as well as you can up there.
I don't know if you guys ever heard of this Jeff Traylor guy.
Oh, he's doing well.
He's doing all right at UTSA. Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, I think they're close to top 10, if not like 9th or something like that.
Yeah, they're like 8 or 9.
Ricky Rain at Old Dominion. They've been okay. They went 6-7 in 2021. They're 2-3 this year. They had a pretty good win. They beat Virginia Tech. They beat Arkansas State, but they lost to ECU, Liberty, and Virginia. But they played Virginia close. They've got Coastal in 2 weeks. Let's see. Steve Adazio. Didn't do great.
Didn't turn out well.
Didn't do great, that's for sure. Kalen DeBoer turned that I think it was like a year at Fresno State, maybe 2 years at Fresno State into the Washington job. So that was pretty good. Sam Pittman, Mike Norvell, Sean Clark at App State. Not terrible.
DeBoer was another guy that's name was floated at USF.
Yeah, man. Oh, God. Jeff Hafley at BC. Not awful. 6-5, 6-6, 2-3. Mike Leach at Mississippi State.
So it's been a mixed bag, basically. It's not
Baylor.
all
been decent.
Yeah.
Dave Aranda at Baylor.
Excellent
That's-
hire. Yep.
Brady Hoke at San Diego State.
Damn, I thought Hoke was there like longer than that.
No.
Was he like a coordinator before and got elevated when Rocky Long left?
Yeah, he was the D-line coach.
No.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, this is Hoke's second.
Yeah, this is his second time at San Diego State. He was there for 2 years as the head coach and then got the Michigan job. Todd Graham, we talked about. Mel Tucker at Michigan State, who turned a solitary Colorado season into a massive ass payday. Get your bag, because that's incredible stuff. They're 2-3, but they went 11-2 last year. We'll see. And then Carl Durrell, who's already been fired from Colorado after replacing Mel Tucker. So, like, outside of guys being like weird and like borderline bad, people see Todd Graham, Nick Rolovich. Jeff Scott's probably the worst one. He's the one that still has the job. Like, you're really competing with like Carl Durrell and a couple others who are on their way out. So good job by him.
Great.
I know we didn't really talk much about Cincinnati. Cincinnati is really good. I think that doesn't need to be said. The way Luke Fickell's just kind of replenished the inventory, so to speak, has been nothing short of remarkable. We knew he was doing great at recruiting, and it's really paid off. Let's just get into predictions and call this one, because I am spent and I am so frustrated overall. So Cincinnati it's the line opened at Cincinnati -25, and I think it's been bet up to 28. So we're working with a 28-point line here, folks. Steeg, what is your prediction for this game?
Fuck. God damn it. It's who was it? I think it was someone in our Slack channel had mentioned something about how we pooped our pants the last 2 weeks, and I was like, I don't think we've ever really like pooped our pants like 3 weeks in a row under Jeff Scott. Really, it's always kind of ironically come in twos. They'll usually be like really bad and then like really bad, but kind of like do okay in like the second half, and then they'll like put together like a okay performance that doesn't totally embarrass you, and you're like, oh, okay, well, if they could do that every once in a while, that'd be great. They'll probably, I mean, they're gonna lose. Let's not, give us any false hopes of how this was gonna be, but they'll probably end up covering as like kings of second halves go. Luke Fickell doesn't scream to me as like ruthless as some other people make him out to be. He probably will only put up like a generous like 56, and then we'll probably score like 35 points in the fourth quarter while we're playing up against the junior team of Cincinnati. Yeah, let's do like a 56 to what would be a 21 point difference? 35? Yeah, 56-35, something basic for you.
Okay, good. I mean, okay.
Yeah, I gave a lot there. There's a lot of thoughts in my head. I have a tweet that I'm thinking about sending out.
Oh, I can't wait.
Stewing on it.
Oh no.
Seth?
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I think the line at DraftKings, the line is 27.5 now, but that might change. I think the consensus is still at 28. So I'm gonna go like I think it's gonna be pretty close to that. I'm gonna go like 45-17. Cincinnati winning. I think 17 could be a push. If this is now, what worries me is that Jeff Scott said today this is the best team they will have played all year. So who knows? That could be a halftime score maybe. But yeah, I'm gonna go 45-17. I don't think Cincinnati's gonna try to. Now they do push the ball vertically in the passing game, so that could get ugly. But let's just call it 45-17, and maybe you can get the backdoor cover there, depending on what this line finishes at. But
yeah, Nick, guest picker. What's your prediction?
I'm going to go 45-27 Cincinnati. I think it's like Fickle likes to put teams into the slow cooker, so it won't be in this case it will be like just a total annihilation the first half, but then similar, of course we're the second half champion, so we'll step up with a couple of touchdowns down the stretch and at the very least cover. So 45-27 is what I got.
Okay. I'm doing 55-17 Cincinnati. I think with Brian Battie and Jimmy Horn, I don't think it's really tough for me to think that one of them, or if not both, will get a touchdown. That's kind of where my thought process is. I wanted to say 55-3, but I think they can find the end zone. I'm not sold on this staff. I don't think the defense is very good. I don't think the defensive coordinator is great. We spent an hour talking about Jeff Scott. I think the lone bright spot has been Travis Trickett. Outside of game script, he's been pretty good. The play calling has been fairly creative for what they have, and that's the fun thing, right? They've got some pieces on offense. It's just everything else is a tire fire. 55-17.
Not to sound too much like Jeff Scott here, but they probably should have scored 42 points last week. The offense isn't terrible. Offenses are the issue. the issue is that ECU probably could have named their score on the other side of the ball.
Yeah,
it's a real shame that Holton Ahlers is gonna have all the quarterback records and beat Quentin Flowers' record and everything like that, because he just absolutely fucking doesn't deserve it.
Yeah, I worry that Holton Ahlers was able to throw for 465 yards and 6 touchdowns, and he's not that great of a passer.
Yeah, it looks like it hurts him when he throws the ball sometimes.
It's
an effort.
It really is. It was like Tim Tebow kind of had this where it kind of took all of his body to kind of with the long wind up and everything.
Maybe it's a lefty thing.
Maybe
it tricks your eyes a little bit.
Yeah, it's like this. Like someone flipped to his film, and he looks like a natural quarterback when you see a lefty throw as a righty. But that was probably the worst part of that game for me. Was he beat one of Quentin Flowers' records or something like that. He moved closer to beating another one. It's fucking God. This guy's been in college for this guy committed to USF when Taggart was coaching. He's seen more volatile on this.
Yeah,
he did it just spite you, Steeg.
It's serious. It feels like it. But yeah, that's our show. I guess we'll do a film room tomorrow.
No, I haven't had internet to download the game, so.
Oh darn! Maybe we'll just do something else.
Seth, we have some footage of a golden retriever movie. This would be the week to do it. We can open that box. See if
that got a copyright strike, and they're like, "All right, you can post it. You just have to remove this section." And it was from 35 seconds into an hour and 15 minutes. They're like, "If you remove that, you're good."
The unaired film room that never.
All right, boys. I'm getting a phone call for some reason. So,
all right. For Nathan, Seth, Nick, Steve, this has been the Bulluminati podcast. Go enjoy the rest of your nights.
Goodbye. Go fucking Bulls, baby.
Go fucking Bulls. Love you all.